host of Cancer and Comedy, where our mission is to heal cancer impacted people through hope and humor, something we like to call turning the grim into a grin. Well, today on Cancer and Comedy, we're going to talk about what to do and what not to do before you laugh. Now, here's the host of Cancer and Comedy, Dr. Brad Miller.
Hey, 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 what a joy and a privilege to be with you, Deb, and all of our lifter-uppers, our cancer and comedy audience, as we continue to build a community of people who are looking to turn the grim of a cancer diagnosis or being impacted somehow by cancer or some other bad adversity in life and turn it to a grin. The grin just simply means to celebrate life and to enjoy life to the fullest, whatever that means, and to the fullest extent of that. So we were all about helping people to heal with hope and humor. And we'd love for people to get connected to our community that we're building here at Cancer and Comedy. You just simply go to cancerandcomedy.com/follow. Hey Deb, how about a couple of really bad dad jokes? Are you ready for those?
Oh, I wait all week for
I'm
those.
sure that you do. What do you call a cow with no legs?
I don't know.
Ground beef. One more. What did the baby corn say to the mama corn? Where's
I don't know.
popcorn? Where's popcorn?
Cute, cute, cute. I love these. You're the life of every party. I can
Oh,
tell.
you got to believe it. You got to believe it. So, as are you. I know you are. I know you
Oh
are.
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, as much as we love this, I have to warn you, following our conversation, you're going to want to stick around because we will have another one of Dr. Brad's bad joke of the day. But then we turn serious with our Faith It and Break It segment. As we said, we would love for you to be part of our cancer and comedy community where together we crush cancer with a message of how to cope with hope and humor. Please follow Cancer and Comedy at cancerandcomedy.com/follow.
Thank you, Deb. I appreciate that good word. And today we're talking about understanding the thought about what kind of inhibits laughter, what maybe holds us back from having a perception of life that's a little bit more of the positive or lighter side. We like to say a cheerful heart is good medicine is part of what we say here in our podcast. But sometimes we have to think it a little bit because sometimes in our psyche we have been given different messages in life that kind of inhibit us from laughter. And so today we are really talking about what to think about, what to do before you laugh or before you respond to laughter. So have you ever had the experience of maybe growing up or any time in life where someone kind of wants to squash humor by something phrased, something like, hey, wipe that smile off your face, or stop smirking,
Mm-hmm.
or
Oh
that
yeah.
laughter
Mm-hmm.
is inappropriate
Mm-hmm.
at this
Mm-hmm.
time, or something like that. Uh, Tell me about that. Has that ever happened to you, or is that a part of
Oh,
anything that you've experienced in life?
oh yeah, no, I'm always having that happen. And there are times where I think as an adult I have people that are doing that. But yeah, frequently it was, wipe that smile off your face. I think that's, one of the things. Or just thinking or you start to crack a joke or even smile and you get the dirty look, right?
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, sometimes it was in church, the
Yeah.
minister, or in class, things like that, where I would, they wouldn't even know what I was going to say. I'd start to open my mouth and I'd get the look, and
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think it's a curious thing because there's definitely appropriate and inappropriate times when we need to laugh, but I think we have kind of quashed humor sometimes when maybe we shouldn't have.
I mean, sometimes there's a framework in the sense of there's certain places sometimes humor seems inappropriate. You mentioned church. Oftentimes people
Mhm,
see church as, serious, austere place.
mhm,
The classroom is another place, stop
mhm,
laughing, in the class or whatever it would be, or the business
mhm,
place, things like that. And certainly sometimes hospital rooms or waiting
mhm,
rooms or treatment areas there are certain times when it just seems like people do not want to hear or do not want to
Mhm.
be
Mhm.
around that type of thing. And yet, there is a role for humor, as we know, in
Mhm.
what we do talk in our
Right.
podcast. And then, but sometimes it needs to be a little bit, think it through a little bit first before we engage in humor. And that's part of what we're talking about here. But maybe there's some ways we can do that intelligently.
Mhm.
I was interested in some of the research we did for this. That there was even historically there was a role for certain people who make humor a professional thing. For instance, I know of people who are basically humorists or clowns or entertainers who go, to like children's hospitals or
Mhm.
hospitals.
Right.
They actually
Mhm.
dress as clowns.
Mhm.
The Ronald McDonald House is one
Mhm. Right.
example of
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
People go as dressed around as clowns or other
Mhm.
entertainers. Could be people with music and so on, and go around and do that place. Even historically, the court jester was
Mhm.
kind of a historical role to kind of
Right.
lighten things up
Mhm. Mhm.
in the midst of really bad stuff that was happening. And yet sometimes it seems like the role is reversed here in what we talk about here in that if we want to have the power of humor and healing, we need to kind of find a way to do this
Mhm.
appropriately. So here's what I would just say to us here as we talk here. There is a role for the fool at times.
Mhm. Right. I love it.
What do you think is the appropriate role of the fool at times? Just tell me your reaction to
Well,
that statement.
as we've discussed before, it lightens the mood, and especially when things are very tense, and they can be very tense. I mean, and sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it's not appropriate. I tend to joke quite a bit, and sometimes my doctors don't always get it. And as we say, sometimes we need to read the room. But it's sometimes we just use humor, obviously, to lighten things up. And I was talking to somebody who said, their spouse was told they had 5 years to live, and he said, well, damn it, I have stuff planned in 10 years.
Yes,
you
yes,
know
right.
and just something little like that, it is, and now if the doctor had said, you only have 5 years, so don't plan anything for 10 years, that might have not have gone over as well,
Right,
right?
right,
um
right.
so yeah, that's the thing is, we can poke fun at ourselves and our situation, but sometimes it really falls flat if somebody else is doing it. Now, maybe it's the loved one. The loved one could say, but I planned a trip in 10 years. Things like that. But I think it is read the room.
Read the room. That's a good way of putting it there.
Mhm.
And yet sometimes I think we can plan something and maybe take a little bit of a risk, and that's
Mhm.
you got to
Right.
kind of take kind of a
Mhm.
calculated risk, as it were, in
Mhm.
certain things. I was reading the book by Alan Klein, The Healing Power of
Mhm.
Humor, and he tells a story about a couple that were going to visit the in-laws at Christmas time, and the in-laws were unhappy about something. There was some family drama of some sort, but they
Mhm.
decided to kind of take a risk. And
Mhm.
when they went to visit the family members who were not that happy for the holidays, they dressed up like Christmas elves. Both the man and woman did, and they had, the green tights and the
Mhm.
pointy
Mhm.
shoes and the whole bit. And they came in as Christmas elves, kind of the elf on the shelf thing. And
Mhm.
they entered the house. They entered, and it lightened the mood, and it broke
Mhm.
up some of the tension
Right.
that that that
Mhm.
that was there. And I just think
Mhm.
there's a place for that, and sometimes
Mhm.
there's appropriate risk to take. I'll
Right.
give you one more Christmas sort of story that comes to mind in my life. And several years ago, I went. My daughter, my daughter and I were living in separate places. She was about 12 from a blended family situation, divorce situation. She was in another city, and she flew in for Christmas. But anyhow, I went to meet her at the airport dressed as Santa, but she didn't know that. And
Mhm.
I in the airport in the receipt, in the disembarking area as Santa, and I've got candy canes and so on. I'm giving out there. There's other kids gathering around, and I'm handing candy canes and whatnot, and having fun with that. And my daughter comes out, and she doesn't recognize me, and then I follow her around a little bit, and she's looking for me as Dad, but not as Santa Claus.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But when she finally had that, so she was kind of concerned. It's kind of a little bit upset even that I wasn't there to meet her as
Mm-hmm.
Dad, but then I suddenly got right in front of her face as
Mm-hmm.
Santa Claus, and she was trying to like, get out of my face, Santa Claus. But then she realized who it was, and she burst out
Mm-hmm.
laughing because she realized that I just kind of really pulled one over on her, and
Mm-hmm.
that was
Mm-hmm.
a lot of fun. What I'm trying to say is, is it worth the risk sometimes to try to inject a little humor, even when there's maybe a little bit of tension there? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a tricky question,
Yes.
because sometimes there can really be a backlash. Not to get political, but we saw where, just a couple of days ago from when we have recorded this, a political candidate had a comedian that had a couple jokes that did not go over well.
Truly in
You
poor
know,
taste. Truly in very
Yes,
poor
and
taste.
and it alienated people. There's been a lot of backlash from that, and his comment afterwards was, "People just need to get a sense of humor." His comment should have been, "I'm very sorry."
Yeah.
And so I think, and I think that's why we get maybe a little bit afraid to be funny, is because we think it could be misinterpreted.
Yeah.
And there are times where, we just all want to say, seriously, folks, it was a joke.
Yeah.
But if it falls flat, the thing we need to do is apologize. And just say, hey, I was just trying to lighten the mood. I am terribly sorry, and then go on. But it's kind of a tightrope
Yeah,
sometimes.
I think what we're talking about here is humor intention.
Yes.
What I mean by
Mhm.
that is that
Yeah. Are you trying
some
to hurt somebody?
if the tension is to hurt somebody, and the
Mhm.
community situation we're talking about was truly intended to hurt people,
Mhm.
that
Right.
is a different deal than trying to make light of
But
yourself
to me, that's
or
not
try to
humor.
make light of the
Mhm.
situation at
Right.
hand. And I think that goes to your
Mhm.
intention.
Mhm.
The Klein in his book talks about some exercises we might do to try to help us to kind of
Mhm.
enhance humor, or to have an opportunity then to think it through a little bit, kind of
Mhm.
think it through
Right.
before we
Mhm.
interject humor. And he
Mhm.
talks about an exercise, and I just want to see what you think about this. He talks about drawing two circles on a piece of paper, one
Mhm.
that is your current situation,
Mhm.
and the second circle is the desired level of humor, whether it's
Okay.
just kind of break the ice, or to have
Mhm.
actual laugh out loud laugh and things,
Mhm.
and that to shift the focus from where you are to where you want to be, and to then drawing lines and such to kind of work with that diagram to say
Mhm.
what is appropriate to go from where I am to
Mhm.
where I want to be. Um, what do you think about that? At least trying to think it through a little bit. That's what he was
Yeah,
saying.
and of course, that's if we're planning humor, right? You
Right.
know, if it's spontaneous, well, I mean, you've got that split second where you think, should I say this or not? But yeah, there are times where, like I've shared, one of the things that I do is when they ask my name in various medical things, they ask your name and your date of birth.
Right.
And I tell them that my name is Anastasia Beaverhausen. And, clearly my name is not Anastasia Beaverhausen. And, sometimes it makes people laugh. Sometimes I get the panicked, "Oh my god, that's not on my chart," look, and then I'm like, "No,
Right.
no, it's okay, I'm just joking." But, I also know that there are times where I can't do that. I mean, it would not be appropriate. They need to, it's just like you wouldn't say, "Hey, you're supposed to amputate this arm and point to the wrong one." I mean,
Right.
you want to be serious when you need to be serious. And so, as Alan said, think through it a little bit, and maybe it's more of a flow chart. Will this happen? No, then this will happen, type of
Yeah.
thing.
I like the flowchart idea there, because it's
Mhm.
kind of like the flowchart also has to do with your setting. If you're
Mhm.
in being wheeled into surgery, that's one
Right.
thing. That as opposed that if you're kind of around the dinner table at a
Mhm.
event or something,
Right.
or if you're at a
Mhm.
workplace setting, an
Mhm.
office
Mhm.
setting, or for a school,
Mhm.
setting, kind of depends on where you're at.
Mhm.
Let's look at the other side of it here just for a minute, about kind of retrospect, kind of seeing
Mhm.
things after they happen for the humor, because at the time
Mhm.
there are certain things that are not humorous, but
Mhm.
they, in retrospect, they can
Right.
they
Mhm.
can they can be.
Mhm.
I know I tell the story sometimes, and I've told it here before about how when I was working on a grounds crew at the school where I went, I fell through a
Mhm.
manhole and caught myself
Mhm.
and yelled some pretty, vulgar things,
But you're a
and
minister.
I know it, I know it, I know it,
You
but
said
I
gosh and you said darn.
because I was, and I had a few other things too, more detailed than that. But my point is, at the time, it was not funny because I was literally falling into a
Right.
sewer system,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I was fearful that I was going to get hurt bad,
Mhm.
And but in retrospect, the people who were involved with it, the guys I was working
Mhm.
with, and some of the other people who knew about it, we all had a good laugh. And I still laugh
Mhm.
about it. It's
Yeah.
been many years
Oh, yeah.
since that happened. I think that's important that we do that
Mhm.
as well to get
Right.
perspective on
Mhm.
things. That yeah, I could have been hurt, but I wasn't, and
Mhm.
now we can laugh about it.
Right.
But I've been know people who've had
Mhm.
really bad things happen to them, really got
Mhm.
hurt, and still have good perspective on
Mhm.
things. Can
Mhm.
you comment on that a second about having
You
perspective
know,
after
I
the fact?
I think what it does in many cases is maybe it's a traumatic memory. Like you said, sometimes people are very seriously hurt or all sorts of things. And when we can look back on it and laugh, maybe it changes that to be not quite such a traumatic memory.
Yeah,
And so I think it's as you said, we get perspective. We realize, you know what, the earth did not end, and various things like that. And so I think looking back and seeing, yeah, that probably was really pretty silly, pretty funny, pretty whatever, it does kind of help us realize, okay, I don't have to think about that situation in such a dark and gloomy way.
yeah. Well, let me throw out this term for you. I think as a way to kind of bring our conversation around here for a moment here, and that's the word transformation. I think humor is
Hmm.
one of those things that can be a bit of a transforming force to kind of
Hmm.
take
Right.
the dark and the gloomy and transform it into something that is manageable, something that we can
Hmm.
help us to cope with
Hmm.
things. And part of what we were talking about here is how we can kind of intentionally transform upsets
Hmm.
into
Hmm.
into an asset,
Right.
and to see how we can transform that in su- such a way that it makes life more
Hmm.
palatable, more doable. Any other
Hmm.
thoughts you want to have about that before we
Oh,
bring this
well,
conversation around?
that's what we're all about is transforming the grim into the grin. And maybe we're not doing a full-on belly laugh, but maybe it's just kind of a little grin to go, okay, I can get through this.
Yeah, I think laughter is one of those things. It's kind of a process,
Hmm.
an application of a process that helps
Hmm.
us to deal with our struggles and helps us to get through
Hmm.
roadblocks, stepping stones. But
Right.
it's one thing that takes a little practice and some
Hmm.
discernment and
Hmm.
some wisdom,
Hmm.
and that's what we're looking to do here. We are wanting to help provide people tools in our community
Hmm.
to apply and amplify humor in your life to help you to just deal with life. And that's what we're all about. We hope people will connect up with our community here at
Hmm.
cancerandcomedy.com/follow.